Welcome to the Taking the Lead podcast, where we empower people to be unstoppable. I'm Christina Hepner with my co-hosts Leslie Hoskins and Timothy Cuneo. So I think it's time to give a little bit of an update. So
people have been asking, Christina,
on wedding planning, because we announced that I was engaged and we went full steam ahead.
Yeah.
Like, we're getting married October of this year. And so we have all of our vendors. I found my dress. And we've started doing the registry and all that fun stuff. It's a part-time job planning a wedding. I did not expect that, but Johnny and I are both like, what are we going to do after the wedding?
Yeah, wedding blues are real. Yeah. I feel like after it's all about you for like a whole year or more, and you've got all these parties and events and everything, and then afterwards you're like, what now?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Enjoy your year.
Yeah, we definitely are. It's been a lot of fun. We're having a lot of fun with everything. And we went to like a registry event, which was fun because we actually got to go and like scan things and be like, ooh, we like that. And then, of course, there were things that
I can't wait to look at that.
There were things on there. We ended up taking some stuff off because Johnny got really excited about some things. And then I did too. And I was like, ooh, we want one of those. And then we got home and we're like, where are we going to put that? Like, if someone bought that for us, where are we going to put it? So
it's crazy to me how much weddings have changed since I got married. Like, all the stuff that you're doing is so exciting and fun, and all these different tastings and the cups and the specialty drinks and like so many things. It's really fun to be a part of and get to listen.
If you need to volunteer for the tasting, I'll come.
Yeah.
I know. We have our tasting coming up. So that's going to be fun to like pick that menu.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize like all the menus that you pick, like all the things you pick and taste, and
it's like building a house. I feel like you have to pick the light switches and all. Like, there's so many details. It's overwhelming.
Yeah. I think the hardest part was like nailing down all of our vendors. Once we got them all booked, we were good. But that was the hardest part of like, there's so many vendors for so many different things. How do you choose?
We need to start a wedding podcast.
Yeah, honestly,
that's our next thing.
Yeah.
I think I could be a pro after this of like, these are things to avoid. These are things to
There you go, see?
Yeah. But you don't know what you don't know, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's the update. People have been asking, so we wanted to make sure we gave a little bit of an update on all the things Christina's got going on, which has been very fun and exciting. It's going quickly on my end. I don't know how you're feeling.
Yeah, no, it's flying. I mean, it's flying by, and it's exciting. We're just trying to take it all in.
Yeah. Timothy, what about you? Where have you been? What have you done?
I just got back recently from Lubbock, Texas for the 2T2 Lions Club District. And I want to give a shout out to Cynthia and her husband Raul and her guide dog named Quarterback. It was a pleasure
I like
meeting
that.
She listens to the podcast a lot. So hello, Cynthia.
That's so cool.
I love that guide dog name.
Yeah, Quarterback.
Right. It was a rough trip through Dallas. Oh, Dallas is a mess at that airport.
Really?
Ooh, with the guide dog, yeah, because we had to go to a way terminal on the other side of the airport, and it took almost an hour to go through that airport.
Oh, wow.
So Glacier did a real good job and did her job properly, but she was glad to get home. It was a 12-hour trip day.
The situations you guys get into, man.
Yeah.
Well,
the good thing you guys are a seasoned team.
It's a challenge. It's a challenge.
See, I would think you would know every airport now because you travel so much.
You could do an airport podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could. There is differences in the pet relieving areas. Some are nice and clean, like the one here in Atlanta, but some of them are really stinky. And this is one of those really stinky places.
Yeah.
So there's a big difference in a lot of them. So yeah, I could write and tell everybody. Somebody can communicate to me. Hey, what's this airport like? I probably almost tell them that.
Yeah. Well, we have now 2 new branch off podcasts that we might be doing.
I'm bringing nothing to the table here. I got to get involved in something more.
You can be a part of them. You can be the one who asks all the questions.
You can be the sidekick. Thank you. Thank you for that.
You're
welcome.
welcome.
So nice. All right, you two. Well, I'm glad things are going well for both of you. You guys both have so much going on, which is fantastic. And thank you for sharing. But we're going to jump into it because today's guest has been volunteering with Leader Dog since 2011 and recently stepped into a new volunteer role.
Sue McDowell has been a client driver and a puppy raiser. She is now a co-counselor for puppy raisers and has stepped into a new role, doing outreach to bring in more volunteer puppy raisers and breeding hosts. She's a former librarian and IT manager and currently coaches girls' high school ice hockey.
Sue, welcome to the podcast, and thank you for being a volunteer for Leader Dog. Can you initially tell us what got you involved with Leader Dog?
It's pretty exciting to be here. First off, thanks to all of you. Timothy, it's great to meet you again. For me, I was aware of guide dogs generally since I was a child. I actually have a cousin who is deaf and a next door neighbor who is visually impaired. And so I was conceptually aware of how we all perceive the world differently. But kind of parked that and didn't necessarily think about it until I was getting into the mature part of my professional career and looking at how I could give back in other ways besides ice hockey. I've been a volunteer ice hockey coach for eons, and I was thinking about other ways that I could give of my time. And I realized that I love to drive, and I realized that there was a Leader Dog for the Blind in Rochester. I actually am in the Ann Arbor Ypsilanti area, so it's about a 50-minute, 60-minute drive to get over to campus. But for those of you who know the world of ice hockey, 50 or 60-minute drive is kind of nothing. And the volunteer engagement person who interviewed me was like, "Are you sure?" And I'm like, they do this all the time for hockey. You drive over an hour for a 50-minute game and then back again.
Yeah.
And that was my initial activity because I thought I'm comfortable driving. I was, I'll put it in quotes, a good driver. So ideally eligible. And I thought it would be a wonderful way to give back and to help. And then I got hooked because when I first started, our drivers were either client or dog. They didn't make a distinction. So sometimes we were picking dogs up in various places or we were taking clients with their dogs to and from campus. And then after a few years, that split and I became just a client driver. And it didn't really matter to me because either way, it seemed like a really wonderful way to give to the organization.
That's so interesting. And so you spend a lot of time with clients. So is that what then motivated you to get involved more with the dog side, like seeing the impact?
Yeah, I think, the seminal moment for me was when I picked up a group. I was one of two drivers that picked up a group of 17 clients coming to campus from Spain.
Oh, my goodness.
And, we're all pretty world weary when we get off an international flight. But watching those individuals get off the flight and dealing with their luggage, and then we were serving as human guides to get them to the vans, and a combination of nervous and exhausted and just, you're in a new country, right? But I also was privileged to be the person who delivered them back to the airport when they returned. And I have to tell you that the other driver was a more seasoned driver, and I think he had done this before. It was my first time. But to watch all of those individuals with their dogs, with their translator, interpreter, walk through security, deal with security, walk down the concourse, everybody's heads up, everybody's shoulders, relaxed, dogs doing exactly what they were supposed to do. I tried to blame it on allergies, but tears were shed because the difference in being able to navigate your world confidently is huge. I mean, it's a huge gift. And that was really the point where I thought, wow, this is something that will live with me forever. And how do I get involved? Can I ever get involved on the dog side of things? Because I loved driving people back and forth, but to be honest, that was also starting to get a little tiresome.
Sure. Yeah. Ready almost for like the next challenge, kind of.
Yeah. But with puppy raising, you're always, I think when you're on the outside and you're not exactly sure what's going to be involved, it's always that concern around, not so much can I do it? I'd raise dogs myself as personal pets, but what was it all going to mean? Did I have the time? Did I have the access? Did I have the places that I might want to take that puppy? And at that particular point in time, I was really engaged in my IT career at University of Michigan, and I was anxious that I wouldn't have been able to focus on a puppy in addition to everything else I was doing in my life.
Absolutely.
So, Sue, if somebody's listening to the podcast for the first time, can you tell what puppy raisers and what the breeding hosts do?
Sure. So puppy raisers are volunteers who are willing to pick up the puppy from the Leader Dog campus when the puppies are somewhere between 8 and 10 weeks old. And then they raise that puppy. And so that puppy is with them for the next 10 to 15 months. And the idea is that you're keeping that puppy safe. You're working with Leader Dog to make sure that puppy is learning the basics of obedience and good house manners and good socialization. As appropriate, you're giving them sort of experience to the outside world. And then when that period of time is over, you return to the Leader Dog campus. We refer to taking your puppy back to Leader Dog University because by then you have a puppy that's, at least a year old. And they go back and they come into intake at Leader Dog, and then they move on to hopefully become part of a guide dog instructor's string of training dogs, and eventually, hopefully, matched with a client. On the breeding mom side of things, those absolutely wonderful individuals are willing to take the female dogs that the team has identified as breeding moms. They're willing to come to Leader Dog to have those dogs mated when they go into heat. And then they manage the actual whelp of the puppies. So they make sure that the mom dog is comfortable and that the spaces are safe and that the puppies are born safely. And then they raise those puppies for the first 8 weeks. And then they return them to Leader Dog so that the puppy raisers can pick them up. So we're really all part of a pretty amazing chain of how that works through Leader Dogs.
Yes. And so now you have this new role. So you really know what these roles are. So tell us a little bit about this outreach role in recruiting volunteers and what it's been like so far. I know it's a new role.
It is a new role. So some of this is still getting our feet on the ground in terms of these things. Counselors who work with puppy raisers, or volunteers who work with puppy raisers, have training every year. And so last summer at counselor training, VJ Josie mentioned that they were thinking about it. They were going to put a posting up. They were talking about it. And I feel pretty passionately about just spreading the word and making sure that people realize that it's possible this could work for them. You know, how many of us are thinking, yeah, I'll do that someday, but you don't really get that extra little push. As a counselor, I knew that it goes in cycles. Sometimes in our area, we have lots of dogs. Sometimes we do not. And that's not helpful. It's nice to be able to just be engaged consistently throughout the period of a year. So I felt pretty excited about it and said to VJ, you know, I don't mind public speaking. I'm happy to go out and spread the word. I like to go to events. From my hockey career, I'm logistically oriented. I like setting things up. What can I do to help? And she said, that sounds like it would be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And then since that time, we've brought on 2 other volunteers, Alex Holzhauser and Celia Eaton. And so the 3 of us are sort of tasked with that promotion.
And it's been a lot of fun. So me as the outreach manager, I also have a group of volunteers who we call our community engagement volunteers, who we've had a Mike Toger on here before to speak about that group. So we've really been collaborating just in the last couple months of getting our groups together, sharing resources, helping each other out at events, making sure all aspects are covered. So you guys are really focusing, though, on the puppy raising and the recruiting side of that and bringing people in specifically for those opportunities.
Right. So what we found is, as you all know, there's lots of ways you can volunteer with Leader Dog. And what we've found is like really trying to focus on how do we identify where future puppy raisers may be? How do we communicate with them? How do we share the stories with them? And then kind of in a full circle, sort of how do we go back into the organization to make sure that everybody is aware of those processes, right? Because ideally everybody would be maybe not the perfect subject matter expert in that area, but confident enough to talk about it in any situation. So that's really, we're still getting our feet on the ground. The hope is that the volunteers will be offering the information sessions that are coming out quarterly. Those are now going to a hybrid model. So those will be available both for people online and physically at campus. And we'll be coordinating those and presenting that material. And then we're also looking at events that probably they may have been on Leader Dog's radar at one point in time, or they may not have been just because of staffing and all the other obligations you have, and exploring those. Does it make sense to be a presence at certain farmers markets? Does it make sense to do tailgates? Does it make sense to do some of these pet expos that come up? For us, it feels like as volunteers, we can, with the guidance of the staff at Leader Dog, present what we want to present and just test it.
Yeah.
And if it makes more sense, then maybe in a future year, there's a different effort.
Yeah. Sue, it is so important for us to have your volunteer role now and your group of people, because really sometimes we don't, as team members, we are pulled in so many different directions that we can't focus on that one thing. So volunteers really, really help us out in so many different aspects of the organization to be able to help focus on one thing that maybe we just can't put all of our eggs in that basket at that time. As you've been doing this, is there any common concerns or questions that you hear from potential people who may want to be puppy raisers or breeding hosts?
I think they're different. So for puppy raising, of course, the number one piece of feedback we always get is I couldn't possibly give my dog up in 12 months, right? If I raise my puppy, I just couldn't possibly do that. We hear that.
Yeah.
On the breeding host side, I think the challenge is that it takes a special family or person to be willing to pay attention to the necessary guidelines around quarantining, because we need our puppies and our breeding moms to be safe. And then also it takes a special person that's got the house and the place to really whelp and begin a litter of puppies.
Yeah.
Right? That's just not everybody's cup of tea. So they're kind of two different cohorts, and we're helping to try to isolate out what would be the best way to reach those. My gut suspicion is that they don't respond the same, because they're such different and unique opportunities. But truly, with puppy raising, the number one we get is that, but 12 months later, I have to bring it back.
Yeah.
I mean, as a co-puppy raiser myself right now, I will say it's gone through phases. When he is in his little teenager phase, I'm like, please take him back. But right now he's in a great phase where he is like really learning and he's behaving. And when I bring him back home with my two dogs, like they play, but it's not like constant where I'm like, oh my gosh, somebody take one of these dogs away for a minute. So I will say that goes in waves. But what I've always remembered in the back of my head is our clients. Like I've always put in my head, this dog isn't mine. And if you go into that mindset where this dog isn't mine and I'm doing something to give this dog to somebody else to make a difference in their lives, I think that has helped me and might help other potential puppy raisers as well.
I agree. We just had a client dog team come to our local puppy raisers group.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And we have two individuals who have dogs that are within a month or so of going back. And both of them commented that it really helped them re-engage in why they were raising this puppy and the potential that this dog still has. In their mind, they're thinking, oh, this puppy, it does X well and Y poorly. And we continually counsel them that that's not necessarily going to be consistent when they go back for training. But they were pretty excited by the end of the meeting, because they remembered again, right? We all do. We have to keep that mission kind of front and central.
It's important to share that impact. Timothy, what would you have to say to anybody who's maybe like struggling puppy raising and thinking about, oh my gosh, I have to give this puppy back?
I can understand why somebody wouldn't want to, but I really appreciate everybody who puts their time and effort in raising these dogs. They have another purpose, and they understand that. And it's like my puppy raisers, they're proud of Glacier and what she's doing and all the other dogs that they raised. So I appreciate all my puppy raisers out there who's raising all these dogs. Hey, Sue, can you tell us the requirements for breeding, how close you have to live to the organization of Leader Dog? And anybody can raise, if I'm correct, in the United States.
That's true. Puppy raisers can be anyone. And the other thing that's kind of cool that I just want to make sure we include for everybody is that Leader Dog fairly recently has changed the model for puppy raising. So instead of just one household taking responsibility for the puppy for the entire time, we now have several new models, one of which is co-raising. So you can now raise with more than one household identified as raisers. I can do co in a second. You can do pass along, which is very popular, where sometimes there are puppy raisers who are very interested in the early stages of a puppy, but get a little overwhelmed when that dog gets a little bigger or a little older. And we find that there are people that like vice versa. There are people who are not as excited about the itsy bitsy puppies and are looking forward to having a dog that's really got the basic groundwork, and then they can work with them. And then we have corporate opportunities and campus puppies for some of our college campuses that have arrangements with Leader Dogs. So those are pretty cool that there's different options now for people who might be interested in puppy raising. For breeding mom hosts, if someone's interested in doing that, they have to have fewer than 2 personal dogs in their house. Their dogs we need to demonstrate that those dogs are up to date in their vaccinations. They need to live within 6 hours of campus in Rochester Hills, and that's primarily because they're going to be doing some traveling with their mom dog, either when she's in heat and ready to breed or for the health checkups that the veterinarians do on campus. And then you're looking at a minimum commitment of about 2.5 to 3 years, because that's about the time frame in which we get 4 litters from the mom. And then the Leader Dog moms are usually retired after that, at that 4 years of age. They don't go into breeding anymore at that point. So people are looking at probably 5 trips to campus every time the puppy comes, or the breeding mom goes into heat. When they're having the puppies, that has to be at home and somebody has to be present. And that isn't, as anybody who's been around any mammal giving birth, that's not, you don't always know exactly what day, and you don't necessarily know exactly what time, and you don't know exactly what you're going to be interacting with. So you have to be comfortable with ambiguity there. And then, like we said before, they just have to be able to be present and attending to the puppies when they're in their baby puppy stage as they're maturing into 7-week-old pups.
And these are big asks, right? That we're asking of volunteers. And it's incredible that we have so many amazing people willing to do this. What kind of support can anybody anticipate on the leader dog side?
On the breeding mom side, it's fascinating to me because, as you can imagine, coming up through driving and puppy raising and counseling, the breeding host side is a bit newer for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been pretty impressed that we've got, obviously you've got the veterinary care staff. We've got the breeding host staff. We've got people who are focused on supporting anyone who is a breeding mom. And then we've got a very active community of breeding mom mentors.
Yeah.
So these are families who have done this in the past or are currently still hosting a breeding mom. And they are phenomenal at reaching out to new parents, effectively, and making sure that people are, and they'll do it at any point, right? They'll do it at any point. If somebody just says, I think I might want to do this, they'll talk to you then. If somebody is saying, I think my dog is going to give birth tomorrow, they'll be there to help then, right? I mean, they share their cell phone numbers. They talk to one another constantly. So I think that is really, really cool in terms of that support for that group. Puppy raising, we go through, we obviously still have all the on-staff support.
Mm-hmm.
The same thing happens for puppies. Puppy raisers are identified with counselors. So there are counselors across the country that are organizers and coordinators that work with the puppy raisers in their region or in their setting to make sure that the puppy raisers are successful, that their questions are answered. Many of us have in-person meetings so that we can just make sure that the raisers and the puppies are progressing the way we think they are. Usually it's also to make sure that the puppies aren't getting too many treats or too few.
Right.
There's never enough of the dogs.
Yeah, they're pretty food motivated, but sometimes that's, I always used to laugh with the counselor that I used when I was a puppy raiser, and I used to tease her about the fact that half of the raising was you were supposed to feed the puppy like a Pez dispenser so that it would understand positive reinforcement, and at the same time you were supposed to keep it from becoming a footstool. And these guys have got very good appetites. So you've got the counselors that are always available to you. You've got our coordinators, the counselors. If we were a corporate organization, I always tease and say the counselors would report to a coordinator.
Yeah.
That's not quite the way it works.
Yeah.
But that's certainly that's kind of the model that you think of. And then the coordinators are on-site staff, and so they're incredibly knowledgeable. Many of them have raised multiple puppies and have worked in the organization for many, many years. And so they're the go-tos for either the counselors or the raisers.
Yeah. I think it's so important to talk about those support systems because not everybody knows it. They think, oh, I'm going to pick up a dog and then I'm on my own.
Right.
So there is so many layers of support systems. And with your new role, do you have any goals for kind of expanding the volunteer network for yourself?
Yeah, for us as recruiters,
Yes.
oh, it would be wonderful. I think one of the untapped markets that we haven't, both counselors and puppy raisers are themselves fantastic recruiters, right? One of the things I tease VJ about is nobody wants to come to Sue and talk about puppy raising if Sue doesn't have a puppy.
Yeah.
Right? That's just, right? You see it, Timothy, right? You have a dog. Yeah. Everybody suddenly wants to come and talk to you.
Yeah.
So it's a little hard to generate interest if you're just a person standing at a table. It's a little better if you've got a dog there. It's even better if you've got one of the little baby puppies there.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So I think one of the things that I want to be mindful that those people who are raising and counseling now are already giving significant volunteer hours. But they are our best spokespeople because they have puppies with them. They're right in the midst of it. And nobody can speak better than somebody who's right in the midst of it, right? So I think trying to find ways that we could open opportunities up for those individuals without overwhelming or encumbering them. We've talked with you folks, as you know, about do we have some of our most current marketing materials available for counselors at the counselor training sessions, and then the counselors in turn can pass that on to raisers who may be interested. Do we have sort of the pop-up box of things you might need if you want to go to a Girl Scout troop or a camp group, or you're going to a high school? What do you need that are the more tangible items that help you relax and just talk about your experience?
Yeah, because anytime you're talking to a puppy raiser, a breeding host, a volunteer, you hear the sense of community, right? You hear how connected they are with our organization and our team members, but also other volunteers. And you can talk to any puppy raiser and they know their puppies, siblings, the mom, the dad, like they can go back generations, I swear, of all the litters and stuff. But everybody's always intertwined or connected. I spoke to another volunteer the other day, and she was telling me just in the lobby that she ran into her dog's dad's cousin's dog. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm like, this is wild to me, but everybody is somehow connected. And it's such a cool bonding thing to know that you're all in this together. And the support that is there is absolutely amazing. So is there anything that you would say, right, on the spot, somebody comes up to you and they're thinking like, hey, I'm thinking about it. What would you say?
I would say go for it.
Yeah.
First. I would say, so I try to engage with them around, so what, you're thinking about it. What are you thinking?
Yeah.
What's the thing that keeps you from signing up, right? And people have very different reasons. Some we've already covered. Some are very specific. And so then it's very helpful just to listen to people talk and say, people will say, well, do I have to bring it to work every day with me? Or, I'm a really busy mom with a busy family and I'm not sure how this interacts. Or I travel 3 times a year and it's very important to me to travel, and traveling with my puppy feels overwhelming.
Sure.
All of those things, that person is special and that person is individual, but many of those conditions have come up before.
Yeah.
Right? So there's answers for all of those. And that, I think people just don't know what they don't know, right? They're insecure about going into that space and they want to make sure that that space is going to be covered and supported by leader dogs. And it will. It will be.
So what's the first place they should go? I'm thinking about it. What should I do next?
So you can actually go to the leaderdog.org website. There are pages, individual pages, one for raising a puppy, one for being a breeding host. You can go there. You can either sign up for one of the information sessions. So if you have additional questions or you just are still kind of very tentative, you're welcome to attend those. Like I said, those are both on campus. The on-campus component includes a tour of the campus. You can attend virtually if you're not locally in that space or it's not convenient for you to come. And then there's also the application form that's right there on the website. Applying is a process. So just putting your application in doesn't necessarily mean checkmark puppy shows up on the door the next day. So people should know that and know that they've got some time, right? They can fill out the application. That application moves more quickly if they have dogs already and they've got those vaccination records. They can submit those and that moves that application process more quickly. If they are looking for any puppy, that process moves more quickly because we have some raisers who are very specific. I want a black lab. I want a male black lab, right? And sometimes that matchup just doesn't happen in any given breeding season just because of genetics and life. The application goes to our volunteer engagement team. The volunteer engagement team will reach out and speak with the applicant. So there's a little bit of a back and forth on that before the applicant is approved. And then it moves on to Ashley Hughes' desk. And she's our puppy coordinator. So she's the person who actually makes the conversation between an applicant volunteering and a new puppy that might be coming in that makes sense for them to begin to raise. So a little bit of time. It sounds longer. Am I talking it through than it probably is? But it is one of those things where the application is not particularly difficult, and people should know that they still can keep processing and they still can keep asking questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
You put that application in, there are many of us that are happy to talk to people. And I think the other thing that you speak of people being proud and knowing everything, I'm always proud of the transparency that our raisers and coordinators and staff and everyone have. We're not trying to sell it to someone who's really not going to be successful. Right?
That's not a win for us.
No,
right.
we want the person and their puppy to be successful.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Sue, for joining us today and sharing about this new role and all the exciting things that are happening with puppy raising and breeding.
Thank you. I'm very excited to have been asked.
And thank you to our listeners for listening to the Taking the Lead podcast. I'm Leslie Hoskins with hosts Timothy Cunio and Christina Hepner. We hope you enjoyed learning about Sue and her new volunteer role here at Leader Dog. Please join us next time as we continue to dive into the world of blindness.
If you'd like to learn more about applying to our free services or to be a puppy raiser or breeding host, you can head to leaderdog.org or call us at 888-777-5332. Don't forget, you can reach us at takingthelead@leaderdog.org with any questions or ideas. If you like today's podcast, make sure to hit subscribe and check us out wherever podcasts stream.